Greetings, Nelson. How are you doing and where have I found you today?
I'm in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, a nice brownstone. I'm very happy to be in my hometown in the middle of all this craziness.
You were just on the West Coast?
Yeah. In my other life, aside from being an Akashic author, I'm a producer and do a lot of TV and film stuff. So I'm a producer on a 5-part Tupac documentary series. And that's been crazy.
Can you name one or two of your favorite mystery authors?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I saw the Maltese Falcon movie with Bogart, and then I got the book when I was a kid, and I went through that. Then I read all of the Continental Op stories that went with that, which were including Red Harvest, which I didn't realize how many people had ripped off for movies. And then I went into Chandler and did the whole Chandler run, which is amazing, and the master of crazy metaphors and similes. And then I sort of got into, I always read Hemingway and that kind of stuff. But then I sort of transitioned into things like The Postman Always Rings Twice. That whole Black Mass school of stuff. I dived into all of that. And then someone turned me on to Chester Himes. And I didn't even realize, I think I knew about Cotton Comes to Harlem because it was a movie. But I had not realized that it was literally a squad of books. So that became I remember that summer when I found Hines. It was a hot summer in New York, and I just was ripping through them all summer. And so that was that, discovering Hines and his life, and then his connection to Baldwin and Wright and all of that French stuff was really fascinating. And then I guess, the final person who really sort of took me to the next level was Mosley, when he came out with Devil in a Blue Dress, and how that seemed to open up the door again for, I think, Black noir fiction, Black crime fiction, in a way that sort of had been, since Hines, no one had really, there'd been a lot of good people, Gary Phillips and so forth, but no one had really broken through like Mosley had. So that was really exciting, and that was very inspiring. I felt like I'd always liked noir, and I'd always liked crime stories. I mean, Chinatown is one of my favorite movies, and I still go back to that movie all the time. It's such a masterpiece.
Darkest Hearts is the 5th and latest installment in your D. Hunter mystery series. What was the inspiration, or the original inspiration, for the character D. Hunter?
It's funny. I was back in the 80s into 90s, I was a music reporter. So I was at tons of clubs and tons of nightclubs. And there was always these big black guys at the door, and sometimes in suits, sometimes in T-shirts that said security. And I got to know a couple of them. There was one guy, he was famous, I think, in the 70s or 80s, named Big George. And he bodyguarded Jagger and people like that. And he was a very elegant guy. He always had suits and ties. I always was fascinated with him. But I would try and get to know him. He was very, very guarded about his life. So I was just intrigued by Big George. And then I saw a picture in the paper of Britney Spears. And there was a big black bodyguard right on the edge of the frame. I said, wow, what's his life? He sees everything. What's going on? Was this guy? And then I thought about Bodyguard. I thought about the movie with, Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner. And I said, well, what if I flipped that story and made the bodyguard black and the girl white, and sort of a Britney Spears type singer? And that became the engine for The Accidental Hunter, which was the first book I did. And it was really interesting because the other part of D. Hunter was that, as you may know, my sister is HIV positive. She's been HIV positive since the 90s. And so I wanted to give him a sense of vulnerability, that he wasn't just this imposing guy, that there was a life to him that was very protected and very vulnerable. And the other thing I added was I saw an article in the New York Times, I'd say about 94, about a family in Brooklyn where all 3 sons had been murdered in basically sort of crack era drive-bys. One had died in 88, 87, one had died in 91 and 90. So it was like within a 4 or 5 year window, all 3 sons in this family had died. And I kept thinking, so what if you're the remaining son? You're the remaining of this legacy of urban violence. So all of those different things all sort of came together to make this character.
So in the movie version, who would you cast as D. Hunter?
Charles Oakley. He literally was Patrick Ewing's bodyguard on the court.
The D. Hunter series has drawn high praise from Spike Lee, Common, and Chuck D. Can you name one other public figure who you would love to hear singing your work's praises?
I'd love for Wesley Snipes to read it.
The D. Hunter series is enmeshed in the world of hip hop and R&B music. The series starts in New York City, but also moves to LA, Atlanta, and London. Do you like spending time in those last three cities, LA, Atlanta, and London?
I mean, London is my favorite non-New York city to hang out in. The first time I went to London was probably in the mid-'80s, and any city that has a subway and has maps that are easy to read, I'm there. So I felt immediately at home in London. And I actually wanted to, I think this book is the first one, The Darkest Hearts is the first one that has scenes there. I actually was trying to concoct a story that would take place entirely in London, just so I can have an excuse to hang out there more. So it's one of my favorite cities, great museums, great theater. Used to be terrible food, now excellent food.
You tend to be a very well-dressed guy, and I've noticed on social media that not only are you wearing nice hats these days, but you're also wearing very nice masks. Would you show us your favorite hat and your favorite mask currently?
Well, my new hat is a nice Panama hat that I just got at a hat shop that's on Houston Street. They got moved out of Lafayette, I forget the exact name of the spot, but they're a really nice hat shop. They're on Houston over near Mott. You can't miss it. It's on the downtown side of the street. So I got this nice Panama. And there's a fantastic shop on Tompkins Avenue in Bed-Stuy called Made Manifest. And I have these two, this one's kind of an Afrocentric kente cloth thing. And this one's sort of like, I don't know, kind of a mod, crazy